Thank you all for coming to what hopes to be a very entertaining evening. First, I'd just like to say thank you to the Student Philosophy Committee for organising this event. The question of whether or not God exists has undoubtedly been one of the most controversial, intellectually challenging and widely discussed questions for, well, forever. Chairing the debates tonight, you'll be pleased to know, is Professor Carl Chin. I think it's entirely appropriate tonight that a debate in Birmingham should be chaired by a man with perhaps the most authentic Brummie accent you will ever hear. He is a historian, a writer, a radio presenter, magazine editor, but sadly, an Aston Villa supporter. So on behalf of the University of Birmingham, I'm delighted to introduce our chairman for tonight, Professor Carl Chin.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. To an evening of debate and discourse. And welcome to the University of Birmingham for those of you who are not from the university, and to this magnificent and splendid setting of the Great Hall. Our two debaters this evening are Professor William Craig and Professor Peter Millican. Professor Craig is a leading Christian philosopher, a defender of Christianity in debates and lectures across the world. He's the author of numerous books and articles, and he is research professor of philosophy at Talbot School of Theology in La Mirada, California. Interestingly, Professor Craig gained his doctorate in philosophy here in 1977 at the University of Birmingham, and it was here that he researched his column, Cosmological Arguments, which is so important to his work today. He then moved on to Germany, to Belgium, and is well known now across the globe. Professor Millican, our other distinguished debater this evening, is a sceptic, and Gilbert Ryle Fellow and Professor of Philosophy at Hertford College at Oxford University. He's also Oxford University Reader in Early Modern Philosophy. Previously, Professor Millican was at the University of Leeds for 20 years. He was employed both in philosophy and computing, and he retains a keen interest in computing, which he sees as closely related to philosophy in many ways. Professor Millican's philosophical interests abroad, although most recently his research has founded on one person in particular, another sceptic, David Hume, the 18th century Scottish philosopher, historian, economist and essayist, known especially for his philosophical empiricism and his scepticism, and of course a key figure in the Scottish Enlightenment. Thank you again for your attendance in such great numbers, and may I welcome to the stage Professor Craig.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and good evening. I want to begin by thanking the Philosophy Society for inviting me to participate in this debate, and I also want to say how privileged I feel to be sharing the platform tonight with Professor Millican. During the years that Jan and I spent in Birmingham while I was doing my doctoral studies here at the university, we grew to have a warm affection for this country and her people. And I say with all sincerity that it is a joy and a privilege to be back in Birmingham and participate in an event like this. So thank you so much for coming this evening. Now, in tonight's debate, I'm going to defend two basic contentions. First, that there are good reasons to think that theism is true, and secondly, that there are not comparably good reasons to think that atheism is true. Now, I'll leave it up to Professor Millican to present his arguments for atheism before I respond to them. In this opening speech, I want to sketch briefly 5 reasons in favor of God's existence. As a professional philosopher, I think that God makes sense of a wide range of the data of human experience, including philosophical, scientific, moral, historical, and existential considerations. So, what are some of these